The cafeteria was alive with chatter, trays clattering, the smell of reheated food drifting through the air. At a corner table, Clara sat with her young son, Ethan. Her blouse was worn, her hair tied back in a rush, the weight of exhaustion etched across her face. On the tray before her sat a single sandwich. She carefully sliced it in half, sliding the larger piece toward Ethan with a smile that tried to hide her hunger. "Eat, sweetheart," she whispered. "Mommy's fine." But she wasn't. Her stomach ached, her hands trembled slightly as she picked at the crust she had left for herself. What Clara didn't know was that across the room, a pair of watchful eyes had noticed everything. And what happened next would change her life in a way she never imagined. If this moment already moved you, stay with us, because Clara's simple act of sacrifice would unlock a twist that touched more lives than she could ever know. Clara hadn't always measured meals by how far she could stretch a single sandwich. There was a time when life felt normal, even hopeful. She once had a husband who promised to stand by her side forever, and a small apartment that echoed with laughter. But forever ended too soon. Her husband left when Ethan was barely 3 years old, chasing dreams that didn't include family. Overnight, Clara became both mother and father, provider and protector. Bills stacked high on the kitchen counter. Notices slipped under the door. The apartment grew quieter, emptier. Still, Clara refused to give up. She worked early mornings cleaning offices, then changed uniforms to serve tables late into the night. Sleep was a luxury she could no longer afford. There were nights she pretended to be full just so Ethan would finish the last bite of dinner without guilt. Days when she carried a cup of water in place of coffee because every dollar counted. Yet through it all, she never let Ethan see her break. She smiled through the hunger, whispered encouragement through the exhaustion, and reminded herself, if my boy is fed, I can endure anything. And so, in that noisy cafeteria, when Clara pushed her half of the sandwich toward her son, she thought it was just another sacrifice no one would notice. But someone was watching. Clara watched Ethan devour his half of the sandwich, his little cheeks full as he chewed happily. She smiled, even as her stomach twisted with hunger. She picked at her crust, pretending it was enough. Across the room, Mr. Harrison, an older man with silver hair and a tailored coat, folded his newspaper slowly. His eyes had been fixed on Clara since the moment she cut her meal in two. He had seen the way she slipped her hunger behind a smile, the way she placed her son's needs above her own. Quietly, he signaled the waitress. A few minutes later, a tray appeared at Clara's table. A steaming bowl of soup, a sandwich twice the size of hers, and a plate of fresh fruit. Clara blinked, startled. I didn't order this." The waitress smiled faintly and nodded toward the far corner. Clara turned and saw the man glance up just long enough to meet her eyes before lowering his gaze back to his paper. Heat rushed to her cheeks. Her first instinct was to push the tray away. Pride had been her armor for years, and she wasn't used to kindness she hadn't earned. But Ethan's eyes lit up at the sight of the food, and she hesitated. "Go ahead, sweetheart," she whispered, sliding the tray closer to him. As Ethan reached for the soup, Clara's hands trembled. Who was this man? And why did he care? She didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning of a chain of moments that would unravel truths she never expected. Clara hesitated, spoon in hand, before tasting the soup. Warmth spread through her chest, but her eyes never left the corner table. The man kept his gaze fixed on his newspaper, as if the gesture had meant nothing. The next day, Clara returned to the cafeteria, expecting nothing. Yet there he was again, sitting in the same corner, the same paper folded neatly in front of him. She tried not to look, but curiosity tugged at her. When she finished her sandwich, she found a folded napkin tucked under her tray. With trembling fingers, she opened it. Inside, scrawled in neat handwriting, were 5 simple words. "Keep going. You're not alone." Her breath caught. No one had spoken to her like that in years. She pressed the note to her chest, blinking back tears before Ethan could notice. But who was this man? And why her? On the third day, fate forced their paths to cross. Ethan, distracted by laughter, tripped and stumbled forward, his small body crashing toward the tiled floor. Clara's heart lurched, too far to catch him. But a strong pair of hands reached out, steadying him before he hit the ground. It was him, the man from the corner, Mr. Harrison. He crouched down, brushing off Ethan's shoulder with surprising gentleness. "Careful there, young man," he said, smiling faintly. Clara froze, unsure whether to thank him or retreat. The stranger looked up, meeting her eyes directly for the first time. And in that moment, she saw something unspoken, in his expression. This wasn't random. He hadn't just noticed her. He was watching her for a reason. But what was it? Clara sat frozen as Mr. Harrison helped Ethan back to his feet. For the first time, his eyes lingered on hers, steady, searching, almost knowing. Later that week, when Clara returned to the cafe, she found him not in the corner, but waiting at her table. Ethan slid in beside her, smiling innocently. Clara hesitated, but Mr. Harrison's calm voice broke the silence. "May I sit?" he asked. Something in his tone told her this wasn't a question. Clara nodded. For a moment, they ate in silence. Then he spoke. "I've seen the way you sacrifice," he said softly. "The way you push your own hunger aside to feed your son. The world might overlook that, but I don't." Clara's chest tightened. "Why are you watching me?" she whispered. Mr. Harrison folded his hands on the table. "Because you remind me of someone. My late wife. Before I met her, she was a single mother, just like you. She worked 3 jobs, carried the weight of the world, and still managed to smile for her little girl." His voice faltered. "When she died, I promised myself I'd never forget women like her, the invisible ones who carry everything." Clara's eyes widened. This wasn't kindness out of pity. It was personal. He leaned closer. "I don't just come here for coffee, Clara. I own this cafe. In fact, I own dozens across the city. I sit in them not for the food, but to find stories like yours. People who deserve to be seen, to be lifted." Clara's breath caught. A cafe owner? Dozens? She had thought he was just another retiree with a paper and a kind smile. But this man held power, resources, and a motive that reached straight into her pain. "You're not invisible," Mr. Harrison said gently. "And I won't let the world treat you that way any longer." Clara's hands trembled around her coffee cup. For the first time in years, someone had looked past her struggle and truly seen her. But what exactly did that mean for her future? Clara stared at Mr. Harrison, her heart racing. She wanted to believe his words, but after years of broken promises, trust didn't come easily. Then he reached into his leather briefcase and slid an envelope across the table. Clara hesitated, her fingers trembling as she opened it. Inside were documents, not money, but something far greater. A letter of acceptance, a scholarship for Ethan to attend one of the best schools in the city, fully paid. A contract, a job offer for Clara, not scrubbing floors, but working as a community coordinator for Mr. Harrison's company, helping other struggling families like hers. Clara's breath hitched. I don't understand. Why me?" Mr. Harrison's eyes softened. "Because I see in you what the world refuses to see. Strength, sacrifice, love. The very things that built this company from nothing. I don't help people out of pity, Clara. I invest in people who change the world quietly, one act at a time." Tears blurred her vision. For years, she had begged for crumbs. And now, someone was offering her dignity, opportunity, and hope. Ethan tugged on her sleeve, his eyes wide. "Mom, does this mean we're going to be okay?" Clara pulled him close, nodding as tears slipped down her cheeks. "Yes, sweetheart, we're going to be okay." That night, for the first time in years, Clara didn't go to bed hungry. For the first time in years, she didn't cry herself to sleep wondering if tomorrow would be harder. Instead, she closed her eyes knowing tomorrow was finally brighter. And all of it began with a simple sandwich, a mother's sacrifice that she thought no one noticed. But someone had. Because kindness, even when it feels invisible, always leaves a mark. And sometimes, it changes everything. If Clara's small act of sharing her lunch could change her entire future, imagine what the next story will do to your heart. Don't stop here. Watch our Kindness That Changed Everything playlist and let the next twist remind you why hope is never lost. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard by millions more, subscribe right now and join our Soul Twist family, because the next story might be the one that changes you.